I've had so many people reach out saying they wish they could have attended my talk at the ResusX Conference. And honestly, I wish you could have all been there too. The energy and camaraderie in the room were incredible, something that's hard to capture in a podcast episode. The conference really was amazing. I had the chance to speak on resuscitation leadership from a nurse's perspective. And while most of the audience were physicians, the principles I shared apply to anyone involved in resuscitation, especially those who take on leadership roles. So, whether you're a charge nurse, a medic, a rapid response nurse, a nurse practitioner, a PA, physician, or anyone who might be called upon to step up to the plate and lead a resuscitation team, this episode's for you. I did a similar episode about a year and a half ago. It's episode 62 if you want a deeper dive into this topic. But for today, I'm going to share my TED Talk style session from ResusX, focusing specifically on how to lead teams from chaos to calm. Hey there, I'm your host, Sarah Lorenzini, a rapid response nurse and educator who loves telling stories to teach critical thinking. This podcast is for nurses who want the knowledge, skills, and confidence to respond to any emergency. With almost 20 years of experience in the ER and critical care nursing, and a master's degree in nursing education, I have a lot of stories to share, and I love to nerd out and break down the pathophysiology, pharmacology, and nurses' role in emergencies. Stories bring learning to life. It is way easier to learn from and remember the stories that my colleagues and mentors have told me than anything I've read in a textbook. And that is why I made this podcast. Every episode is packed full of exactly what you need to know to handle whatever crisis that could arise on your shift. It's one thing to get the right answer on the test, but knowing how to detect when your patient is declining and what to do when your patient is crashing is what will make or break your day and might just save your patient's life. How do you know if you're a great resuscitationist? What are the factors that set apart the mediocre ones from the good ones from those that are really great at resuscitation? I'm guessing you want to know or you wouldn't be here. So if you really want to gauge how you measure up, ask the people you work with. Hi, I'm Sarah. Been a nurse for over 20 years, ER, CVICU, and now rapid response nursing. And I have worked with some incredible resuscitationists. A lot of pretty good ones, and a few who, well, they were terrible. And today I want to share what I've learned from these experiences because I found that the most effective resuscitationists are the ones who have more than just clinical competence. But first, let me tell you about one unforgettable shift. So I responded to a code blue on the oncology floor. The patient was found by his nurse face down in a pool of blood, esophageal cancer. I quickly scanned the room that was wrought with emotion and noticed there was blood everywhere and a lot of frantic people. So I established my presence. Hey guys, I'm Sarah, the rapid response nurse. Who's the primary nurse? She proceeded to tell me how she found the patient and the classic line, he was fine before this. I hear this line a lot, unfortunately. So I made sure rolls were covered, compressions, airway, meds, documentation, and then we checked for a pulse. Asystole. Just then, the ICU attending arrived. It was a locum I'd never met before. He silently headed towards the head of the bed, and I gave him a quick rundown, and he nodded and proceeded to drop the airway on the first pass, like a boss, despite the bloody mess. I was super impressed. I get the team on track. Epinephrine, pulse checks, compressor swaps, all the things. Even threw in so what are we thinking for H's and T's? After about 20 minutes, the attending said, if no one objects, I'm going to call it after the next pulse check. And he did. Then, as he turned to leave, I stopped him. Hey, before you go, can we take a moment to honor this patient's life? We do this thing at my facility. We call it a moment of honor. So I led the team. We honor Mr. Smith's life. We honor the people that he loved and the people that loved him. And we honor the work that we've done here today as a team. Let's pause for a moment of silence. I looked around the room and saw tears trickling on the faces of several of the nurses. I thanked everyone for coming together to care for Mr. Smith. Then I said to the locum doc, we usually debrief after every code. Would you like to lead it? He said, sure. And what he said next still makes me cringe. He said, The CPR quality was not good. You should have had suction set up and ready, and this patient probably should have been on telly. Boom! The whole room just deflated. He said it so fast, I didn't have a chance to intercept the bomb that he just dropped on the room. And I tried to steer it back to what went well, but the damage was done. The nurses were gutted. Here was this interdisciplinary team that had just experienced a very unexpected and emotional code blue. I mean, the nurse found the patient face down in a pool of blood, and somehow the team had come together to get him up off the ground and initiate CPR. They were all blood-stained and brokenhearted. I wanted them to remember their valiant efforts as a team, not just the 3 negative things this physician felt needed to be shared. It was shift change, but I stayed and helped the team clean up Mr. Smith before his family arrived. They shared stories of how kind he was, how much they loved him, and how excited they were he was supposed to go home tomorrow. On my silent drive home, I reflected. I'd assumed this doctor's clinical skills and calm demeanor would translate into leadership and resuscitation. And I was wrong. So that leads me back to my opening question. What separates the good from the great? I'm sure you'd all agree it's not just the ability to adhere to the ACLS algorithm, and it's not even the ability to utilize POCUS as a diagnostic tool, although I know many POCUS junkies who would beg to differ. And clearly, even if you are an airway savant and can drop a tube in the bloodiest, anatomically challenging airways, even that does not equate to being a great resuscitationist. So, what is it? Well, I would propose it's your ability to lead the team and bring calm from chaos. But here's the thing. There are a lot of technical skills and strategies you can implement to make you a better team leader. There are countless books and podcasts on the topic, and I would recommend you look into those. But today, I want to leave you with these 3 concepts to reflect on as you give your attention to your own ability to bring calm from chaos. The first one's this. How you treat your team affects their performance. It may sound silly, but mood and confidence do impact performance. It's human nature. Studies show that teams perform better when leaders create a safe environment for communication and collaboration. Your tone and attitude can directly influence how others perform, especially in high-stress situations. Respect and support foster confidence, while criticism or condescension undermine it. They've actually studied this in simulation, and when interdisciplinary participants in a code blue are led by a calm and caring team leader, well, what do you know? They perform better. There's more team cohesion, less mistakes are made, and the clinical changes in the patient are acted upon promptly. However, when the team leader was rude, condescending, and didn't communicate clearly, well, the team did not work well together. Clinical changes were missed, and more errors were made. I know I perform better when I'm working with someone who I feel supports me and is not outwardly making me question my every move. So if I perform better in a supportive environment, and I'm an experienced, confident, and somewhat spicy seasoned nurse who's comfortable in emergencies, imagine how much more important that is when working alongside more novice team members. And speaking of novice team members, a great strategy when working with your novice teammates is more than just being intentional about your word choice, tone, and body language, but to actually take time to think out loud. You're already going through the next steps or even the rationales in your mind for the actions you have to perform. Why not share that knowledge with the group? This serves 2 purposes. It helps them go with you where you're going and anticipate what's next, and it provides education to level up their critical thinking for the next emergency. So, back to the story I just shared. The intensivist did not even introduce himself, which, being a locum, I would say he needed to do that all the more. He just went straight to the head of the bed and dropped an ET2. He didn't really communicate at all, except for his unsettling delivery of a critique at the end. But he did remain calm. I will give him that. How people feel in your presence is important. And I would say it's just as important what you say as how you say it. When I arrived, I introduced myself and asked who the primary nurse was. I do this because I don't want the whole room trying to give me the story. For most rapid response calls when CPR is not underway and the patient still has a pulse, I'll say, "Hey, I'm Sarah, the nurse in the rapid response team. How can I help?" And for a code blue, I'll lead with, "Just tell me what you know." I never say, "Why did you call a rapid?" or "What happened?" Even though those are valid questions, and that happens to be exactly what I'd like to know, I just find that particular phrasing tends to put people on the defensive, and some even shut down. And that is not the desired effect. I want my words and my body language to invite their collaboration in this resuscitation, not to add to their own questioning of their abilities. And even simple phrases like, "Thanks for letting me know," or "That's helpful information," those do set the tone and help move people from chaos to calm. Just because someone is dying doesn't mean our manners have to die with them. I can still say things like "please" or "excuse me," and even dropping kudos here and there like "strong work with that IV" or "great compressions." That goes a long way. If you want the room to feel like a battlefield, then shout like you're on one. But if you want your team to perform at their best, create an environment that allows them to do so. And you do have the power to set the tone. If I show up like a wild banshee barking questions, "What happened? Who's the nurse? What's the rhythm? Where's the defibrillator? Why don't we have suction set up?" I am just adding to the chaos. Instead, we can model calm, clear communication. And if we model it, well, then we can expect it from others. Hey guys, I'll get back to the show in just 1 second, but before I do, I have a request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you want the show to continue to grow, to access more awesome experts in the field, and to keep providing you with more nursing knowledge and inspiration, could you take a minute to leave a rating and a review? Those reviews on Apple and Spotify go a long way in getting this podcast in the hands of more nurses and bringing new guests to the show. And they just make my day to know that my stories and nerdy patho breakdown are helping other nurses thrive, or at least survive. So if you're feeling up to it, I'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you so much. Now back to the show. If you want closed loop communication, then use it yourself. And if it's not happening, just politely ask, "Hey, can you please close the loop?" It just helps us stay on the same page. And speaking of tone, well, I'm a short female. I'm all of 5'3" tall, and I don't have the luxury of height or a booming voice. In fact, my voice's natural response to my own dump of epinephrine in emergencies is to go high-pitched and talk even faster. So I've had to learn to slow my speech, drop my tone, and be intentional to fully enunciate my words to command a room. My coworkers call it my code voice, but it helps me focus and communicate clearly and keeps the team calm. Because your actions create a blueprint for others to follow. And finally, a good debrief today can save a life tomorrow. Debriefs aren't just about reviewing what went wrong. They're opportunities to learn and improve and highlight what went well. Done thoughtfully, they provide insights that enhance your team's approach to future resuscitations. Skipping a debrief just squanders the chance to celebrate wins, identify areas for improvement, and strengthen team cohesion. Following a well-conducted debrief, participants should feel uplifted, informed, and empowered. There should be that deeper appreciation for interdisciplinary collaboration. If everyone walks away from the debrief feeling defeated, you're doing it wrong. So, my advice, start with what went well. Give the team a chance to give each other kudos. Maybe share a few that you noticed as well. And after you lead with the positive, well, then you can move into what could have gone better. And there's always something we can improve upon as a team. And then finally, finish with gratitude. Thanks, team, for your contribution today and for coming together for this patient. Debriefing makes sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes. And it reinforces that we keep doing the right things and helps us get better for the next patient. So, what do you guys think? How does this resuscitationist measure up? I mean, clinically, I'd give him a 10 out of 10. He successfully established an airway without stopping compressions, and I have no qualms with how he followed ACLS for all the interventions that we gave. His tone, well, it wasn't terrible. He honestly didn't say much, so he wasn't really adding to the chaos. And he did tell the team preemptively that he was going to cease resuscitation efforts if there was no pulse at the next pulse check. I think that's good. So I don't know, maybe like a 5 out of 10 on leadership vibes. But he absolutely fumbled his chance to lead the team well in the debrief. I mean, I 100% agree that we needed to bring up CPR quality. We had 2 nursing students that performed CPR for the first time ever. And while they improved with some live feedback, they didn't really start off strong with their CPR quality. And yeah, suction was an issue with this bloody airway. I should have prioritized delegating that as soon as I entered the room. And the whole should have been on tele, well, I don't know. I think every patient should be on tele, but at least for my hospital, this particular patient, he didn't meet criteria for tele. There was no what went well or kudos or even an invitation for him to give feedback or ask questions. He just dropped the negative and thought that would suffice for a debrief. So yeah, I give him a 1 out of 10 for the debrief. Even though he had the clinical skills to pass the test, I'd say overall his performance, at least at this one code I worked with him, was unfortunately below average. Now, I'm not saying that I get this whole resuscitation leadership thing right every time. There are times that I nail it, and times that I'm disappointed with how I failed to lead the team well. Times where I let my own frustration or overwhelm get in the way of being able to set the best example or sway the tone of the room for the better. But with much trial and error and a lot of self-reflection and a ton of podcasts, I've learned some behaviors that have helped me serve my team and thus the patient in front of me well. And I'm committed to continuing to grow and hone this skill. So in summary, there is much to learn with regards to our clinical skills and knowledge about resuscitation, but let us not forget the value of some of those softer skills that make for a great resuscitationist. Clinical skill alone doesn't make you a great leader. True leadership is about harnessing the strength of the entire team. So, take the time to refine your leadership, because it's not just your clinical expertise that saves lives. It's how you bring the team together for the best patient outcome. Before you go, I have an exciting announcement. You can now earn CEs for listening to this podcast. That's right. Our Renegade has teamed up with podcast hosts like me who are delivering amazing content that not only educates, but inspires you to be the best for your patients. You get to learn and earn continuing education credits while absorbing knowledge from thought leaders and innovators in the field of health and medicine. You're already listening to podcasts during your commute, at the gym, or while unwinding after a long day. So why not earn your CEs at the same time? And that's where pod classes come in. Yep, it's just what it sounds like. It's CE learning through podcast. To learn more, I put a link in the show notes for you. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you learned something that will save a life. Remember, nursing is a team sport, so trust your intuition and don't give up advocating until you are confident you've done what's right by your patient. The views and opinions expressed on this show are that of Sarah Lorenzini's. That's me and mine alone. They are not intended as medical advice and should not take the place of your institution's policies or procedures. Evidence-based practice is ever-changing, and your patient care should reflect the current best practice. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can shoot me an email at sarah@rapidresponsern.com or on all social media platforms as the Rapid Response RN.